I think we have Manelik. Is it Manelik in California on the line?
Manelik.
Yeah.
Hello?
How are you?
Oh, good. How are you, Alan?
Not so bad.
Thanks for taking my call. I think what I wanted to ask you, if I could, would be about the entertainment industry, which I'm a part of in a sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to know on the music side of things, because I'm in the music industry, and I see on a day-to-day basis, how dumbed down the masses of young people are, and they're being indoctrinated on a daily basis. But I want to know on the production end, how much, in terms of the producers knowing what they're doing with the sounds and, the tones and where the music's going, how much do they know about what they're doing? Or are they just thinking that do they get the call from someone above them that says, this is what we're looking for?
Yeah.
Do this? Or are they, some of them, either initiated in the whole game and knowing what the mission is? Or how does it work?
The higher ones, the ones in the bigger companies certainly do. Absolutely. I've met them, and I've worked with some of them. And the trick was always for me to try and get messages out in songs and so on that still were popular but bypassed the political correctness that was getting pushed in different directions. But the ones higher up are all experienced in the sciences of sound and the manipulation on the human mind of particular types of sound, the effects, the emotional effects it has on people, and also the words, the combination of words, which can have almost a magic impact on young people who parrot generally the choruses, and they vaguely understand or remember consciously some of the main verses, but the subconscious really listens carefully and retains these subliminal, you might say, almost in the background verses, and they act upon it. They actually act upon it, programs them to act out, and they start to change their speech. They'll copy the little words, the neologisms, they call it, for new words. They start to mimic them. They don't know where it came from. Don't question anything. And so, they had meetings in 1904 on this very topic, international meetings on the use of music. And one guy from New York who was experimenting with a new type of what became really jazz, not Dixieland jazz, but the more discordant type jazz. And he was kidnapped eventually after the Russian Revolution and taken over there because the Russians understood the significance of music on the minds of the youth, and they worked heavily on this. They came out with the beatnik era. That was a communist invention where they would associate a particular dress code, type of music, and the use of marijuana for the West, and use this kind of discordant music, which put you into almost a hypnotic state. Nothing really mattered. Anything would go. And it took off really well in Europe, but didn't quite make it for the U.S. and Canada. So they had to go back and revamp it and turn out pop music. Now, guys like Martin that worked with the Beatles was really a scientist in acoustics. And how it manipulated the mind. If you listen carefully to the types of arrangements and so on that were done in that early music, it was definitely done not by backstreet musicians or three-chord wonders, but by people who really knew their stuff and how to get particular types of emotions attached to the words that they were putting out.
Right.
Because when you have an emotive attachment to the wording itself, it imprints itself on the mind, the brain.
Right.
And you will never forget it. It will affect your personality, in fact,
Well, today's producer, the kids that, and I know a lot of these guys out here that are doing the music that, that's out. Okay, the music's not as complicated. It's not as thought out. There's a lot of sampling and looping. How does it work now? I mean, it's the same thing. Are these guys aware that the tones that they're using are going to produce a certain response or are they just following a trend? Like one producer hears what the sound is, and
that's right. They see what's coming at the top, what's been pushed and promoted it to be number ones in the hit list, and they emulate it, thinking that's now in. We'll do something similar.
Well, Alan, I don't know if I'm sure you don't keep up with much pop music, but it is getting to the point where I mean, I'm around young people all the time, and I don't know where it's going to go if we don't get to the youth soon. These kids are going I hear you talk about, the microchip in the future and being prepared for it. Mm-hmm. With the mentality that's being bred into the kids today, or the children today, they're getting progressively more and more ready for that, because the violence in the music, the aggressiveness in the music, and the whole idea of it's about me, not about you. I could care less about community. And it's like all those elements that you talk about, with family being broken down, man and woman, it isolates the child so that the music becomes a friend almost.
That's right. It's a friend. And what it does too, and this was talked about a long time ago when they discussed they called it the sequencing of music trends, where they would come out with pop, then rock, again all Masonic terms, then heavy metal, like King Arthur's sword. That's what it refers to, and on it went right down to rap things up, and the judge, of course, and the Masons hit the gavel, and that starts the session. So these are all Masonic terms for a sequence. And during the late 80s, when they were creating massive unemployment, they wanted a nihilistic generation, so they came out with basically what was, before they gave the word metrosexual males, suddenly all the groups were metrosexual. You had this wailing music, sort of lost music, which was very depressing. It was meant to put them in a state of depression.
Is that the New Wave movement that was going on in England with the whole, I remember England had this whole New Wave where all the guys kind of looked like, kind of feminine or effeminate with their look, new romantics or different subgenres.
Mm-hmm. And I've been present when very older people who are professionals pick out people from a lineup who've all volunteered. Well, they're all looking for a job as a musician or a group, and they're picked. You, and you are the right size, the right weight, and all the rest of it, the right looks. You're now a group called so and so. You only sing 3 hits in a row. Here's the songs. You get well paid. You don't tell anybody about it. This is a setup, and they just act out their 6 months to a year in the hit parade, and then they disappear. You wouldn't believe the business behind it all at the top, and it's not done by just business people at the top. I've seen how they picked the top 10 and top 20s in Britain at the BBC. And these were people with tweed suits, women and men, in their 50s, sometimes 60s. They had no interest, obviously, in the particular music, except for the psychological effects and the social conditioning that they put through. And they were picking what songs all media in Britain was going to push as number 1 right up to 20. So this is how it really, really is. It's a scientific thing.
It's funny because I heard you talk about this before with Jackie a while back, and you were talking about, rock, the Beatles, and the whole thing. And in my experience, I've seen the same things where a producer will get with an artist, an unknown artist, and this artist will have a song written, but the producer will take the song, change the lyrics up, change the way the arrangements will go and say, okay, here's how you sing the song.
That's right.
And, get the co-writing credit for it. And the whole idea of what the artist wanted the song to be has been changed now.
Absolutely.
It happens all the time. I see it all the time.
I met one guy who was one of the top rap groups, and he went through the drug scene, the whole thing, and almost killed himself. And then he left it, and he did get religion, which helps a lot of people who are addicted to substances and so on.
Right.
But he said the same thing. He says, we walked into that studio the first time with an average song, girls, boys, all that kind of stuff. By the time they'd left the studio and it was recorded, it was kill cops and all this kind of stuff. Completely changed.